The unexpected gift. Bea and Lucas had spent years dreaming of this moment. Their love story was one of simplicity and strength, a relationship built on unwavering trust, deep affection, and mutual respect. They had met during college, a chance encounter in a crowded cafe, where their eyes locked over a spilled cup of coffee. What started as a small accident had blossomed into a partnership that weathered every storm, every challenge life had thrown their way. They had become each other's anchor in a world full of uncertainties. When Bella discovered she was pregnant, the news was nothing short of miraculous. They had been trying for years, but after numerous tests, doctor's appointments, and disappointments, it had seemed as though their dream of becoming parents might never come true. And then, one day, Bella had found out she was expecting. The excitement was overwhelming. They shared the news with close friends and family, and their world began to shift in the most beautiful way. The couple had worked tirelessly over the past months preparing for the new addition to their lives. The nursery, once a bare room, now exuded warmth and love. They had painted the walls a soft pastel blue, adding colorful animal stickers and cheerful, smiling sun decals. Tiny, soft bedding lay neatly in each of the cribs, the clothes folded and tucked into drawers, and toys arranged by size and color in baskets. They spent their evenings together, talking about what the future would be like, imagining the giggles of their child echoing through their home. Bella would often lay her hand on her growing belly and dream about the moments ahead. "Can you believe it, honey? We're going to be parents," she would whisper with a gentle smile. Lucas, always the optimist, would nod with tear-filled eyes. "I can't wait to meet them, Bella. I can't wait to see you as a mother. You're going to be amazing." The weeks went by quickly, and the anticipation grew. They attended prenatal classes, read books, and filled their home with the scent of baby lotion and powder. It was a world of hope, happiness, and anticipation. There were few moments when they didn't talk about their growing family, and both Bella and Lucas reveled in the joy of it all. As the due date drew closer, Bella's excitement began to mix with anxiety. The thought of the labor, the pain, the uncertainty, all of it felt overwhelming. But Lucas was always there to reassure her. He would rub her back, whisper sweet words of encouragement, and tell her how proud he was of her. The day Bella went into labor was the day they had both been waiting for. It arrived in the middle of the night, without warning, and Bella's first instinct was to panic. She woke up to the sharp pain of contractions, her body telling her that it was time. She woke Lucas, and together, they rushed to the hospital, both of them full of nervous excitement. The ride to the hospital was a blur of bright headlights and hurried breaths, Bella squeezing Lucas's hand with each passing contraction. As they reached the hospital, the reality of what was happening began to set in, and Bella felt the wave of emotions, fear, anticipation, love, and worry, all swirling inside her. The doctors were waiting for her arrival, and soon she was prepped for delivery. Lucas stood by her side, holding her hand, his face a mixture of love and anxiety. Bella squeezed her eyes shut as the pain intensified, but every now and then, she would glance at Lucas, trying to reassure him with a weak smile. "You're doing great, Bella," Lucas said, his voice cracking. "I love you so much. We're almost there." After hours of labor, Bella's breath became shallower, and the delivery room was filled with the chaotic sound of beeping machines and nurses rushing around. The pain intensified as Bella pushed, her body overwhelmed with the effort. And then, finally, the first cry, the most beautiful sound Bella had ever heard, filled the air. Their daughter had arrived. But as the nurses cleaned up their newborn, something felt off. Bella, still breathing heavily, looked to Lucas, her hand clutching his. There was a moment of hesitation as Lucas stared at their baby, his face pale and expressionless. "Is everything okay?" Bella asked softly, her voice filled with concern. The nurse, who had been focused on the baby, looked up at her with a gentle smile. "Everything is perfect. Congratulations, she's healthy." But Lucas's gaze remained fixed on their daughter. His eyes widened slightly, his brows furrowing as though something didn't add up. Bella followed his gaze and for the first time noticed the subtle difference, something she hadn't quite processed in her euphoric exhaustion. Their baby, though beautiful and perfect in every way, was darker than Bella. She had the same dark skin tone as someone of African descent, but they were both white. Confusion gripped Lucas. He blinked hard and rubbed his eyes, his thoughts rushing faster than he could keep up. Bella felt a pang of discomfort in her chest, but it was nothing compared to the way Lucas was reacting. His hand, which had been gently holding hers, suddenly pulled away. He stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving their child. The room became quiet, and Bella's heart began to pound. She felt a cold sweat form on the back of her neck. What was happening? Why was Lucas acting this way? We need to talk," Lucas said, his voice strained, barely above a whisper. Before Bella could ask what he meant, a nurse entered the room to take the baby for some additional checkups. As the nurse took the baby away, Bella turned to Lucas, her hand trembling as she reached for him. "Lucas, what's wrong?" she asked, trying to understand what was going on. He didn't answer immediately. He paced the room, his face contorted in confusion. His mind was spinning, and he couldn't make sense of it. Everything had been so perfect, so normal. Why was their baby? Why was she like this? I don't understand, Bella," Lucas said, his voice cracking. She's not mine." "What are you talking about?" Bella whispered, tears starting to well up in her eyes. Her heart sank. "Of course, she's yours. She's our baby. You saw the test results. We went through this together. We've talked about this." But Lucas didn't seem to hear her. His eyes were wide with disbelief, and he took another step back. But she looks nothing like us, Bella. I thought I could handle this. I thought I could love her, but I can't." Bella's chest tightened as if the air had been sucked out of the room. She felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal, disbelief, and confusion. How could he think this way? She had carried their child for months. She had loved her, nurtured her, and now he was rejecting her because of something she couldn't control. "I don't know what to say," Lucas muttered, shaking his head, his hand running through his hair. "I need to think." And just like that, Lucas left the hospital room. Bella's world crumbled. What had just happened? How could the man she loved, her partner, leave her, leave their child, just like that? As the hours passed, Bella lay in the hospital bed, her mind spinning with the events of the day. Her daughter's cries echoed in the hallway, but it was her own heart that felt as if it was breaking into pieces. How could she do this alone? What was happening? But deep inside, Bella knew one thing for sure. No matter what, she would raise her daughter. She would protect her, love her, and ensure that the world would never define her worth. No matter how much it hurt, no matter the challenges ahead, Bella was determined to be the mother her child deserved. And so, as the night fell, Bella whispered to herself, "I will be enough." She just didn't know yet how much more she would have to sacrifice. The struggles of single motherhood. The following days after Lucas left were a blur of emotion, confusion, and overwhelming solitude. Bella tried to keep her composure for the sake of their daughter, whom she had named Maya, but the weight of her husband's departure left a deep scar in her heart. She couldn't understand what had happened. How had everything turned upside down so quickly? They had built their lives together, spent years dreaming of starting a family. And now Lucas had walked out. Bella didn't even have time to properly process his absence. The days in the hospital passed in a haze. Nurses came and went, checking on her, helping with Maya. But Bella felt as though she were trapped in a world that didn't make sense. The joy of becoming a mother was still there, but the sharp edge of abandonment gnawed at her every time she looked at Maya's beautiful face. How could something so perfect come with so much pain? The hospital stay was a whirlwind of tests, checkups, and the whirlwind of emotions that come with new motherhood. Maya, although born with dark skin, was a perfect baby, healthy, happy, and full of life. Every time Bella looked at her daughter, her heart swelled with pride, but her mind was constantly filled with questions. Why had Lucas left? Why couldn't he see that this beautiful, perfect child was theirs, together? When Bella finally left the hospital with Maya in her arms, it wasn't the joyous moment she had imagined. It was an empty house waiting for them. No husband to share the joy with, no partner to help her through the sleepless nights. It was just Bella and her baby, facing a world that suddenly felt much larger and much more frightening. In the weeks that followed, Bella had to find a new rhythm to her life. She adjusted to being a single mother with unwavering determination, though the struggle was often overwhelming. Maya cried through the night, and Bella was often left groggy and exhausted, managing only to catch a few hours of sleep before the demands of motherhood resumed. Days bowled into one another. The exhaustion took its toll, and Bella found herself feeling like a shadow of her former self, a person who no longer recognized the woman she had been before all this had happened. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion that weighed on Bella, it was the mental and emotional strain. She missed Lucas, despite everything that had happened. The loneliness was suffocating. Every day, she felt the absence of his presence, and every moment she spent tending to Maya made her realize just how much Lucas's departure had left an unfillable void in their lives. The house, which had once been filled with their laughter, now echoed with silence, except for the sound of Maya's cries or her cooing as she discovered the world around her. Every time Bella heard a car pull up outside, she felt her heart skip a beat. But it wasn't Lucas, it was the neighbors or a delivery person. Still, she kept the faint hope alive that one day he would return, that one day he would realize that he was making a mistake, and he would come back to his family. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, the phone calls and messages from him never came. She tried to reach out to him, but her messages were left unanswered. He had completely shut her out. The pain of it all was unbearable. She couldn't understand how someone who had once been her everything, her partner, her confidant, her best friend, could so easily walk away from everything they had built. Despite the emotional turmoil she was drowning in, Bella had no choice but to keep going. She had to care for Maya, nurture her, protect her. And somehow, Bella found the strength to carry on. She learned to do everything on her own. Feedings, diaper changes, late-night feedings, and even the overwhelming, never-ending laundry pile. It was like being in an emotional fog, her mind always in overdrive, but there was no way out. As the days passed, Bella found herself losing touch with the world outside her home. The once bustling social life she had shared with Lucas became a distant memory, and most of her time was spent focused entirely on Maya. She hadn't told anyone about what had happened with Lucas, mostly because she didn't know how. The few friends she had left would ask about him, and Bella would brush it off, saying he was working a lot, or that they were just going through a tough time. The truth was too painful to admit. She didn't want to be pitied. In the midst of all this, Maya thrived. Bella's love for her daughter only deepened as she watched Maya grow from a newborn to an inquisitive toddler. Maya's laugh was a balm to Bella's soul, and despite the overwhelming exhaustion, Bella found herself smiling through the darkness. But there were still moments, so many moments, when the loneliness crept in. As Maya hit each new milestone, rolling over, sitting up, laughing for the first time, Bella felt a bittersweet pang in her heart. These were moments Lucas should have been there to share. Moments she had once imagined would be filled with joy and excitement for the entire family. Instead, it was just Bella, her strength tested to its limits with each passing day. But it was also in these moments of silence that Bella found a quiet sort of peace. She realized that, while she was grieving the loss of the family she thought she would have, she was also building a new one, a family shaped by love, resilience, and a determination that nothing would break her. Her strength was like a muscle, growing with every day that passed. She learned to rely on herself. The pain of Lucas's absence slowly began to fade, replaced with an understanding that she was enough. More than enough. Maya needed her, and that was all that mattered. Bella discovered new depths of her own capacity for love. She had always thought that love was a shared experience between two people, but she now realized that love, true love, could be a force that came from within. She loved Maya with everything she had. She gave her daughter everything she could. Her time, her energy, her heart, and somehow, it was enough. But even with all her strength, Bella still struggled with doubts. Would Maya ever feel different because of the way she looked? Would she ever question why she didn't look like her mother? Bella wondered what she would do when those questions inevitably came. She imagined the world outside, the world of stares, whispers, and judgments that her daughter might face as she grew older. She wanted to shield Maya from the harshness of the world, but she knew that wouldn't be possible. The world could be unforgiving, and Bella feared for her daughter's future. At the same time, there were small victories. Bella had started working from home, building up her freelance graphic design business from scratch. She'd always loved designing, and now, more than ever, it gave her a sense of purpose. The work kept her mind busy, and each completed project gave her a feeling of accomplishment. But more importantly, it gave her hope. Hope that she could create a life for herself and Maya, one where they could thrive, even without Lucas. Still, there were times when Bella found herself wondering if she was doing the right thing. Could she truly raise Maya on her own? Would she be enough? The nights when Maya cried for hours were particularly difficult. On those nights, Bella often found herself on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from the tears she tried to hide, questioning whether she could continue. But then, every time, there was Maya, her daughter, her world, sleeping peacefully beside her. And with each new day, Bella's love grew stronger, more resilient. She knew she would never give up. Not now. Not ever. Bella realized that, even without Lucas, she had everything she needed. It wasn't the life she had imagined, and it wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and she would protect it with everything she had. The journey was just beginning. Embracing the unknown. The years passed with a steady rhythm, and Bella's life evolved in ways she never could have predicted. Maya grew quickly, too quickly, in fact, and every day was filled with a new discovery, a new milestone. She learned to walk, then to talk, and then, to Bella's joy and surprise, she began to develop her own quirky little personality. Maya was strong-willed, confident, and incredibly independent for her age. Bella couldn't help but marvel at how quickly her daughter had adapted to their unconventional family dynamic, how resilient she was. But there were moments, deep in the quiet of the night, when Bella couldn't help but wonder what would happen when Maya got older, when the world started to ask questions. The thought of her daughter being questioned about her appearance or treated unfairly made Bella's heart ache. What would she do if people pointed out that Maya didn't look like her mother? Would Maya feel different? Would she ever question why she didn't have the same skin as Bella, why her hair was curly and thick while Bella's was straight and fine? As a mother, Bella tried to prepare herself for these challenges, but the truth was, she couldn't predict how the world would treat them. In her heart, she knew that Maya would face obstacles, and as much as Bella wanted to protect her daughter from pain, she knew she couldn't shield her from everything. The world was complicated, and sometimes it could be harsh. But Bella wasn't going to let that scare her. She had faced so much already, and every day, Maya proved that she was tougher than Bella had ever imagined. They had each other, and that was enough. One afternoon, as Maya played with her dolls in the living room, Bella found herself lost in thought. She was working on a freelance project, her laptop open and papers scattered around her, but her mind kept drifting. It was a quiet day, one of those rare moments when the house was calm, when everything seemed to be going smoothly. But it was also the first time in years that Bella allowed herself to think about something beyond survival. She thought about the possibility of a future, of the kind of life she and Maya might have. What would it look like? What would it feel like? Would they ever have a family again? Would there be someone in their lives who would love them both? Lucas's departure had left a wound in Bella that she wasn't sure could ever be healed. There had been no closure, no conversation, no attempt at reconciliation. He had simply vanished from their lives, leaving behind a heartbroken woman and a daughter who would never know her father. Bella had come to accept that she could never change the past. She couldn't force Lucas to come back, no matter how much she wanted to. And as much as she had longed for him to return, had convinced herself that one day he would see the error of his ways and come running back to the family he had left behind. Bella had begun to accept a painful truth. Maybe Lucas wasn't going to come back, and maybe he never would. And in some strange way, Bella had also started to realize that she didn't need him. Maya didn't need him. They had their own story, their own journey. It was different from the one they had imagined, but it was still theirs. Bella wasn't broken because Lucas had left her. No, she was stronger because of it. But just as Bella was getting comfortable in her new life, a letter arrived, one that would change everything. It came on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, tucked into an envelope that was addressed in handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Lucas. Bella's heart skipped a beat. She sat frozen for a moment, the envelope resting in her hands. She hadn't heard from him in so long years, actually. And yet here he was, reaching out. Her mind spun with a mix of emotions. Curiosity, hope, anger, and a touch of fear. She had no idea what to expect from this letter, but she knew she had to open it. With shaky hands, she tore the envelope open and pulled out the letter inside. The first words made her pause. Bella, I don't know where to start, but I need to tell you some things I've kept to myself for far too long. The letter went on for several pages, but Bella's eyes were locked on the first sentence, unable to tear herself away. Lucas's words were filled with a mixture of regret, apology, and confusion. He spoke of his own feelings of inadequacy, of how he had been unable to handle the shock of Maya's birth. He admitted that, at the time, he had felt a deep sense of guilt and shame. Unsure of how to navigate the situation, he had pushed her away, pushed Maya away, because he had been afraid. He had blamed himself for not understanding why their child was so different, why their child didn't look like them. But over the years, he had come to a realization. Maya wasn't just Bella's daughter. She was his too. The letter didn't just apologize. It begged for forgiveness. Lucas had spent years regretting his actions, realizing that his departure had been the worst mistake of his life. He wrote about how he had tried to move on, but every time he saw a child that resembled Maya, he was reminded of what he had lost. He was filled with remorse, and now he wanted to make things right. The words on the page seemed so foreign to Bella. How could this be the same man who had walked away without a second glance? How could this be the same person who had left her alone with their daughter? Tears welled up in Bella's eyes as she continued reading. The letter ended with a simple request. I want to see her. I want to meet Maya. I know I can never undo what I did, but I want to make amends. I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me. Bella sat in silence for a long time, the letter still clutched in her hands. Her mind raced. What was she supposed to do with this? How could she even begin to process the emotions that were flooding her? It wasn't just about the letter. This was about their daughter, their future. Maya had grown up without Lucas. She didn't know him, didn't remember him. And as far as Bella knew, she had never once asked about him. Could she forgive him? Could she trust him again? She looked over at Maya, who was playing contentedly with her dolls. Maya's laughter filled the room, and Bella's heart swelled with pride. Her daughter was the light of her life. But Lucas had been part of that light too, once, long ago. Could he ever be part of it again? Bella didn't have the answers. She wasn't sure what the future would hold. But she knew one thing. She couldn't make this decision alone. It wasn't just her life anymore. It was Maya's. And whatever choice she made, it had to be the right one for her daughter. The decision wasn't going to be easy. But Bella had learned, through all the years of hardship, that sometimes the hardest decisions were the ones that ultimately led to the greatest growth. For the first time in a long while, Bella allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was a chance at healing, for both herself and for Maya. Maybe, just maybe, Lucas could find his way back into their lives. But the road ahead would be uncertain, and Bella knew there were no guarantees. She couldn't forget the pain of the past, but she had learned that forgiveness was a gift she gave to herself as much as to others. For Maya's sake, she would have to find it in her heart to make that decision. The question was no longer whether Lucas deserved forgiveness. The question was whether Maya needed him, and whether Bella was ready to allow him back into their lives. Only time would tell. The journey of forgiveness. Bella sat at the kitchen table long into the night, the letter from Lucas still in her hands. The words swirled in her mind, refusing to settle. Her heart was torn in 1,000 directions. She knew that Maya deserved to know her father. But could she truly welcome him back after everything that had happened? The abandonment, the hurt, the way Lucas had left them with no explanation and no word for so many years. Bella had spent so much time building a life without him. In the absence of Lucas, she had found strength she didn't know she had. She had learned how to parent Maya alone, how to love her unconditionally, how to build their little world from the ground up. And as much as she longed for things to be different, longed for the life they had once planned together, she had also realized that the life she had now was hers. It was whole in a way she never expected. But now, Lucas was back, or at least he wanted to be, and the emotions Bella had buried under years of pain were bubbling to the surface. The past few years had been a constant struggle, but they had also been full of unexpected joys. Maya had become the center of her universe, the reason Bella had kept going through the darkest moments. The thought of introducing her to Lucas after all this time brought an odd mix of hope and dread. Could they ever be a family again? Could she trust him with Maya's heart after all that had happened? She had to admit she was afraid. Not of Lucas, not of him returning, but of what might happen if Maya didn't accept him, or if things didn't work out. The decision weighed heavily on Bella, but one thing became clear in her mind: Maya deserved to know her father. She was old enough now to begin asking questions, to start piecing together the story of her origins. Bella couldn't keep hiding the truth from her. She needed to make a decision, and soon. After much thought, Bella wrote back to Lucas, a carefully worded response. She agreed to meet with him, though she made it clear that Maya's well-being would always come first. She would not allow him to hurt their daughter again. The letter ended with an invitation to meet at a local park, neutral ground, where there would be no pressure, no expectations. Just a chance for Lucas to prove that he was ready to be a part of Maya's life, if she was willing to let him. The days leading up to the meeting were filled with anticipation and dread. Bella could sense that Maya was picking up on the tension, even though she didn't fully understand what was going on. Maya was always curious, always asking questions about everything. And this was no exception. Every time Bella tried to explain why they were going to meet a man she hadn't seen in years, Maya's young mind struggled to process the concept of a father who was no longer a part of her life. "Mom, why don't we see him?" Maya had asked innocently one day, her small face full of confusion. Bella smiled softly, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "Sweetheart, it's a long story. But we're going to meet him soon, and then you'll have a chance to ask him all the questions you want." Maya didn't fully understand, of course. She was only 5, but she trusted Bella implicitly, and that trust was all that mattered. Bella would explain when the time was right, but for now, she simply had to hold on to her daughter's love and faith. The day of the meeting arrived, and Bella felt a flutter in her stomach. She had tried to push her nerves aside, to focus on the importance of the moment, but the weight of the situation was undeniable. She dressed Maya in her favorite dress, a vibrant red one with tiny flowers, and combed her curly hair until it shimmered. Maya was excited, though she didn't fully understand why. She was eager to meet the man her mom had talked about, the one who had given her life, the one who had been absent from it. They arrived at the park just as the sun was starting to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the ground. Bella found a quiet bench by the pond, where she knew they wouldn't be disturbed. Maya chattered excitedly as she ran toward the swings, her laughter filling the air. Bella kept a watchful eye on her daughter, but her mind was still on Lucas, wondering how he would behave. It wasn't long before she saw him. A familiar face, though time had changed him. Lucas had aged in the years since she had last seen him, and there was a weariness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He looked nervous, his hands fidgeting at his sides. As he approached Bella, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. What would he say? How would he act? "Bella," he said softly, his voice hesitant but earnest. "I thank you for agreeing to meet. I know I don't deserve this chance, but I want to see her. I want to make things right." Bella didn't know what to say. She could feel the tension in the air, and the urge to protect Maya, who was still playing on the swings, burned inside her. But she nodded, deciding it was time for Lucas to meet his daughter. "Over there," Bella said, pointing to where Maya was playing. "She's still young, but I know she'll want to meet you. If you're ready." Lucas swallowed hard, taking a deep breath as he walked slowly toward Maya. Bella watched from the bench, her heart in her throat, as he approached her daughter. Maya saw him first. She stopped playing and stared up at the tall man standing in front of her. There was a brief moment of confusion in her eyes, as if she wasn't sure who this man was. But Lucas crouched down to her level, a nervous smile on his face. "Hey there, little one," he said softly, his voice trembling. "My name's Lucas. I'm your dad." Maya tilted her head, her small brow furrowing as she processed the words. "My dad?" she asked curiously, glancing over at Bella for confirmation. Bella smiled gently, walking over to them. "Yes, sweetie. This is your dad, the one I've been telling you about." Maya seemed to think about it for a moment. She didn't remember much about the concept of fathers, and it was clear that she didn't have the same emotional attachment to Lucas that Bella did. But she was open, her curiosity piqued. Lucas extended a hand toward Maya, and after a brief hesitation, Maya took it. The moment felt surreal to Bella. This man who had walked out on them all those years ago was now holding her daughter's hand, as if he were trying to reconnect, trying to build something that had been lost. "Do you want to play with me?" Maya asked, pulling on Lucas's hand. "We can swing together." Lucas's face softened, his eyes filling with emotion. "I'd love that," he replied, a slight tremor in his voice. He rose to his feet, taking Maya over to the swing set, and together they swung back and forth, laughing together under the soft, golden light of the setting sun. Bella stood there, watching them, her heart torn. She wanted to believe that this was the beginning of something new, something that could heal the wounds of the past. But she knew that trust would take time. Maya was still too young to fully understand what was happening, but there was a part of Bella that believed this was the right step. The meeting was just the beginning. There was so much more to navigate, so much more to unpack. But as she watched Lucas and Maya together, Bella knew that this was the first step towards something bigger, something that might someday become a real family again. It wasn't going to be easy, but Bella was determined to make it work, for herself, for Maya, and for the chance to heal. The journey of forgiveness, for both Lucas and herself, had begun. And although the road ahead was uncertain, Bella had learned that nothing worth having ever came easy. New beginnings and uncertain paths. In the weeks that followed their first meeting, Bella found herself caught between two worlds. One was the world she had built with Maya, a world filled with love, joy, and an unbreakable bond that had flourished through years of hardship. The other was a world that had suddenly reappeared, a world of uncertainty and unspoken hopes. Lucas had begun to re-enter their lives, cautiously, as if testing the waters, but each meeting felt like a small victory for him. He was trying. He was trying so hard. Yet Bella couldn't escape the weight of the past. She had lived through the heartache of his abandonment, and though his apology felt genuine, she knew that forgiveness wasn't something that could be given easily. Maya seemed to have accepted him without hesitation. There was no bitterness in her heart, no anger, only curiosity. To her, Lucas was just another grown-up to meet, a figure from her mother's stories suddenly brought to life. She seemed to have no reservations, and each time they met, she warmed to him more. But for Bella, the process was far from simple. She was caught in a constant tug-of-war between the woman who had learned to thrive without Lucas and the woman who still held a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could become a family again. It wasn't that Bella was unwilling to forgive Lucas. It was that, deep down, she feared the consequences of reopening a door that had been closed for so long. Could she trust him again? Could their family survive the scars of his past actions? She had so many questions, and there were no easy answers. Yet, when she saw how Maya was thriving in the new relationship with her father, her heart softened. Maybe this was the start of something good, for all of them. On one particular evening, Bella and Maya were sitting together on the couch, a pile of books spread out between them as they read together. Maya had developed a love for stories about far-off lands, brave heroes, and magical adventures. And Bella was more than happy to indulge her. The sound of the front door creaking open interrupted their quiet time, and Bella looked up to see Lucas standing in the doorway, a hesitant smile on his face. "Maya," Lucas called softly, and Bella could see the warmth in his eyes as he spoke to their daughter. "Are you still awake, kiddo?" Maya immediately jumped up, her little feet pattering across the floor as she rushed to Lucas. "Dad," she exclaimed, her face lighting up in a way that made Bella's heart ache. Maya had started calling him Dad, and Bella wasn't sure how to feel about it. She wanted to be happy for her daughter, but there was a part of her that was still struggling with the idea of Lucas being part of their lives again. But when she saw the joy in Maya's eyes, all of Bella's doubts seemed to dissipate, if only for a moment. Lucas knelt down to meet Maya's eager gaze. "You want to go for a walk with me? Just you and me tonight?" Maya didn't hesitate, nodding enthusiastically. "Yes, yes, yes." Bella watched the two of them head out the door, her heart a mixture of emotions. As much as she had initially been hesitant about Lucas re-entering their lives, there was no denying the way he was connecting with Maya. He was trying, so much more than he ever had before. But could that really be enough? Could they build something that was lasting, something that wasn't just a fleeting hope? The evening felt longer than usual as Bella stayed behind, lost in thought. She couldn't ignore the weight of her feelings, and she couldn't ignore the ache of uncertainty. The time that had passed since Lucas had left them had changed things. Bella was no longer the woman she had been when he left. She was stronger now, more independent, more sure of herself. But there was still a longing for the kind of family she had once dreamed of, a family that was whole. Could they ever return to that place, or had too much time passed for them to reclaim what they had lost? As Bella pondered these questions, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Lucas. "Hey Bella, I know this might sound strange, but I've been thinking a lot about everything. I want to be better for both of you. I know I've made so many mistakes, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. But I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." Bella's heart twisted at the words. She knew they were genuine, but could they trust them? Could she trust him? When they returned from their walk, Maya was practically glowing. The walk had been a simple one, a stroll through the neighborhood, Lucas showing Maya the small details of their surroundings that he had once missed. He had asked Maya about school, about her favorite things, about what she wanted to be when she grew up. In return, Maya had chattered endlessly, excited to have his attention, thrilled by the simplicity of their connection. It was as if the last few years of absence didn't matter, or at least, they didn't matter to Maya. But Bella noticed that Lucas seemed different too. He looked lighter. He looked at peace, as if some of the burdens of the past had been lifted from his shoulders. He was no longer the man who had left. Now, he seemed like someone who was genuinely trying to be a part of Maya's life, a man who was willing to do whatever it took to prove that he was worthy of her trust. Maya bounced into the living room, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom, guess what? Dad said we can go to the zoo next weekend. I'm so excited." Her voice was full of wonder, and Bella couldn't help but smile at her daughter's enthusiasm. Bella looked at Lucas, her expression unreadable. "The zoo, huh?" she said, trying to keep her voice even. "Yeah," Lucas replied, his voice steady, but with an underlying sincerity that Bella couldn't ignore. "I thought it might be fun. I want to make it up to her, both of you, really." Bella nodded slowly. She had heard those words before, the promises, the apologies, the assurances that things would be different. But this time, there was something in his eyes that made her wonder if this could be real. They sat down together as a family, something that felt both familiar and foreign at the same time. Maya chatted excitedly about all the animals she wanted to see at the zoo, and Lucas listened intently, his face filled with genuine interest. It was moments like these that made Bella question everything. Was it possible to forgive him? Was it possible to trust him with Maya again? The answer wasn't easy, and Bella knew it wasn't going to be an overnight decision. But as she watched the two of them interact, her heart softened. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe it wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something better from it. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed, Bella sat alone in the quiet of their living room, contemplating everything. Lucas had changed. There was no denying that. But could he be the kind of father Maya deserved? And could he ever be the man she needed him to be? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: their journey wasn't over. For better or for worse, Lucas was back in their lives. Whether it would work or not was still unknown. But Bella knew that whatever happened, she would always fight for her daughter. And if this was the path they were meant to walk together, then she would walk it, one step at a time, with her heart wide open. And maybe, just maybe, the future would surprise them both. The unwritten future. Weeks slipped into months, and the quiet evolution of their new dynamic slowly became their routine. Bella's heart, once a fortress built to withstand the blows of abandonment, was beginning to soften in ways she hadn't anticipated. The skepticism was still there, lurking in the background, but as she saw Lucas's ongoing commitment to Maya and his growing efforts to prove himself, the walls that had once been so firm began to crack, piece by piece. Maya was flourishing under the attention of her father. The visits became more frequent, and Lucas was showing up with gifts, stories, and even homemade dinners that he had prepared himself, small gestures that spoke volumes. His desire to make things right was clear, but it was in the quiet moments, the unsaid words, that Bella could see just how much Lucas had changed. But even though Maya was embracing this new chapter with an open heart, Bella remained cautious. She had learned long ago that love wasn't something that could be rushed, that forgiveness wasn't a switch you could simply flip. The scars from the past were still there, etched deep into her memories. She couldn't ignore the ache of having been left alone to raise their daughter, to bear the weight of the world on her shoulders. And yet, as Lucas grew more involved in Maya's life, Bella started to wonder if their family could truly heal. One afternoon, as the warm glow of the sun cast golden light through their living room windows, Bella and Maya were on the couch, watching a movie together. Maya had insisted on watching one of her favorite animated films for the 100th time, The Adventures of the Brave Princess, and Bella couldn't help but laugh at how invested her daughter was in the plot, even though she knew every line by heart. "I want to be like the princess," Maya said between bites of popcorn, her eyes wide with excitement. "She's so brave, Mom. She never gives up. Just like me." Bella smiled, brushing a lock of hair away from her daughter's face. "You are brave, sweetie. You're the bravest girl I know." As the movie continued, Bella's mind drifted. She thought about the way Lucas had begun to show up for Maya, how he had tried to be there for her in the small and big ways. He had even taken on extra work to provide for the both of them, doing everything he could to contribute. But what did that really mean? Could one's actions erase the past, or was there more to rebuilding a broken trust than just showing up? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a knock at the door. Bella glanced at Maya, who was too absorbed in the movie to notice. With a deep breath, Bella rose and walked to the door, surprised to find Lucas standing there. He had a hesitant look on his face, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jacket. He looked almost vulnerable, something she had never seen from him before. "Hey," Lucas said softly, his voice uncertain. "Can we talk for a minute?" Bella nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The past months had brought them closer, but this still felt like uncharted territory. She wasn't sure what to expect, but as Lucas walked into the living room and saw Maya curled up on the couch, he smiled faintly, his eyes softening. "Hey, kiddo," he greeted Maya, who looked up and gave him a big grin. "Hi, Dad," Maya said brightly, barely taking her eyes off the screen. Lucas sat down on the edge of the couch, the space between them just a bit too large for comfort. Bella took a seat in the armchair, her gaze steady, but not yet fully open. "Is she always this into the princess movies?" Lucas asked, his voice laced with affection as he watched Maya. "Yep," Bella replied, a small laugh escaping her lips. "She's obsessed. It's her thing." Lucas nodded, then turned his gaze to Bella. The shift in his expression was subtle but clear. This was different from their usual casual conversations. There was a heaviness in his eyes now, something more profound, something he had been holding back. "I've been thinking," he began slowly, choosing his words with care. "About everything. About Maya. About us." Bella's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of what was coming, but she couldn't yet tell if she was ready to hear it. "I know it's not been easy," Lucas continued, his voice steady but full of raw emotion. "And I know I've made mistakes, huge ones. I can never undo the past, and I don't expect you to just forget what happened. But I want to be a better man for you and for Maya. I've been thinking about what kind of father I want to be, and I've realized that I've been selfish, not just in leaving, but in the way I've treated this whole situation. I've been so focused on myself and what I wanted that I didn't stop to think about what you both needed." Bella remained silent, watching him. Every word he said felt like an invitation, a door opening to a future that she hadn't considered in years. But she wasn't ready to walk through it just yet. Lucas let out a breath, his gaze falling to the floor as he ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know what I'm asking for, Bella. I just want a chance to prove that I can do better. Not for me, not for my own guilt, but for Maya. And for you." A chill ran through Bella as she absorbed his words. She had heard apologies before, but this one felt different. This one felt like the beginning of something. Though she couldn't quite name it, her heart ached in a way she couldn't explain. "Lucas," she began, but the words caught in her throat. She wasn't sure how to respond. Her feelings were all tangled up, a confusing knot of hope and fear. She had spent so many years building a life that didn't depend on him. Could she risk that now? Could she allow herself to imagine a future where they were whole again? "I know it's a lot to ask," Lucas added, his voice low. "I'm not asking for forgiveness overnight. I'm asking for time. Time to show you that I'm different. Time to show Maya that I can be the dad she deserves." Bella sat in silence for a long moment. She glanced at Maya, who was still absorbed in the movie, oblivious to the weight of the conversation unfolding in the next room. She knew her daughter deserved stability, and she knew that Lucas was giving her the kind of attention he hadn't given her before. But could they rebuild a relationship on the shaky foundation of the past? "I think you're right," Bella said softly, meeting Lucas's gaze. "Time is what we need. Time to figure out what this is going to look like for all of us. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were, but I'm willing to try. For Maya's sake." Lucas's face lit up with a mix of relief and hope, though Bella could see that there was still a quiet tension in his posture. He wasn't asking for everything at once. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of hurdles, But it was a road that now seemed a little more possible than it had before. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving me that chance." As the evening wore on, the three of them sat together in the living room. Maya had paused the movie to play with her toys, and Lucas joined her on the floor, engaging in the simple, innocent fun that came with being a parent. Bella watched from the couch, her heart swelling with an emotion she couldn't quite name. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer of a future that might be different, a future where forgiveness didn't erase the past, but built on it, brick by brick. The journey ahead was uncertain. Bella knew that. But one thing was for sure. She wasn't walking it alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild something worth fighting for. The story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for the first time in a long while, Bella could see the possibility of a new beginning. A beginning she had once feared she'd never have again.